Hello everyone, my name is Bronwyn and I work in the Future Students team at the University of Tasmania. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today to learn about our postgraduate nursing courses. Before we start talking about those courses, I'd just like to take a quick moment to acknowledge the traditional owners of the lands across all of the places we're meeting from today. For us in Tasmania, that is the Palawapakana people of La Truita. We pay respect to elders past and present as the knowledge holders and sharers. We honour their strong culture and knowledge as vital to self-determination, well-being and the resilience of their communities. And if you do go on to become a student with us at the University of Tasmania, I think you'll see that genuine commitment to reconciliation and Indigenous knowledge through the content that we teach. So what we're going to be covering today is, first off, why study postgraduate nursing? Then we'll be diving into the 3 course options that we have and discussing the really wide range of specializations we have available. We'll talk about what exactly study will look like for you, as well as your further study options, and then we'll get into partner scholarships, which I know a lot of you have questions about, and then the nuts and bolts of how to apply. As we go through the webinar today, you'll notice down at the bottom of your screens, there's a little button called Q&A. Please pop any questions that you have into that Q&A section. As I mentioned right at the beginning, we have a big team of people here to answer your questions. 2 of our student advisors who you'll get to know very well once you're students, that can answer questions as well. And before I hand over to the real experts in postgraduate nursing, I just wanted to share a story of one of our previous students, Benita. So Benita was actually 42 when she decided to change careers and move into nursing. And just 10 years after starting her Bachelor of Nursing, she had continued all the way through and completed a master's degree. And the reason she's dressed in fencing gear in this photo is because she's also a competitive fencer and competed in the uni games. And when asked about the course, something she said is that when living in Sydney, there are a couple unis that offered a master's degree in nursing, but the University of Tasmania gave the broadest spectrum of subjects and knowledge. And because she was working full time, it was really helpful to her to be able to study online. And something else great to mention about Benita is that she was awarded Best Paper in 2023 by the Journal of Perioperative Nursing. She co-authored a paper with Paula, who you'll meet a little later in the webinar, about evidence-based practice in perioperative nursing, barriers and facilitators to compliance. So that's something that all students do in the master's component of our degree, is they write a paper for possible publication. So that's a fantastic thing to add to all of your resumes. So I'll introduce you now to our academics who will be presenting the bulk of the content of this webinar. So we have 3 different course coordinators across the different levels of study. There's Annette Saunders, who's the course coordinator for the Graduate Certificate in Nursing. Dinette McCann, who's the course coordinator for the Graduate Diploma in Nursing, and she's also the course coordinator for the Graduate Certificate in Addiction Studies, which we're running a separate webinar on in about a week's time, which I'll share a link to. And then we also have Paula Fornan, who is the course coordinator for the Master of Nursing. So I believe Dinette is going to talk about, is going to present our next slide.
Hi, everybody. Great to be here with you. The question on this slide is why study postgraduate nursing? I guess I'd extend that to say why study postgraduate nursing with the University of Tasmania. And I think one of the key reasons is we're the university from the smallest state, but we have the largest postgraduate nursing program in Australia, and a very broad range of specialties, which Annette will be speaking about shortly. We really pride ourselves on the fact that our courses are taught by industry experts, and so there's a lovely mix of people with clinical currency, but also that academic expertise to guide you through your studies. Our specialties have stream leads who have oversight over the units that sit within that specialty, and they're practicing clinical experts. So they work with us, but they're also still working in practice, and so ensuring that our courses are current and applicable, and really provide value for the students who are studying that specialty. We really pride ourselves on it being an authentic learning experience, and so our assessments are geared towards helping you to develop the knowledge and skills that you need to be practicing as a specialist expert and a leader in your specialty. And so that can include things like presentations or case studies, clinical skills assessments, but also increasingly across our specialties, we're introducing portfolios. And so that means that at the end of your qualification, you have a portfolio you can then use, and that's really advantageous to you in your career advancement within your place of work. You're part of a collaborative online network, so you are learning online, which allows you to be self-paced. It provides that flexibility that we all need in these busy lives, but we really try and ensure that you can interact with your peers, build support networks. So you might be studying in Western Australia or Queensland, but you're talking to nurses in Victoria and Tasmania and New South Wales and South Australia. Better not leave them out. So it's a really great opportunity to build those networks and find out what's happening around our country in your area of practice, and also generous scholarships from partners. We have very strong partnership relationships across Australia, and so we'll talk a bit more later on about some of the scholarships that are available to support you in undertaking your study. Just to give you a sense of the fact that our students are pretty happy to be studying with us. We do see extremely high satisfaction results, and that satisfaction with their overall experience, but also satisfaction with the quality of the teaching and the engagement with the learning resources, and satisfaction with the skills development. I will say we don't rest on our laurels, so we're really pleased that our students are happy to be studying with us, but we are constantly looking at how we can improve our courses, working with stream leads and other professionals within the university to make the content as engaging as possible, to keep it current. So we have great results, and we keep trying to make them better.
Great, thank you, Dinah. I believe Annette's going to talk us through the range of course options available now.
I am, thanks Bronwyn. So as you can see from our slide here, we have a range of postgraduate study opportunities for you. That can start with, like, if you're thinking that you'd actually like to look at a career that focuses more on research, you'd like to do a PhD, or you'd like to become a research nurse within your facility, that usually starts with a Bachelor of Nursing with honours, and that's coordinated by Dr. Chandel Elmer. Honours is a way of you starting to get some knowledge and skills around research, and that can lead you into that PhD pathway, which we also offer. We'll really focus here on the Graduate Certificate in Nursing and the Graduate Diploma of Nursing, as well as our Clinical Masters. But we do have a Graduate Certificate in Midwifery for those people out there that are direct entry midwives. We don't want those direct entry midwives to miss out on those postgraduate opportunities. So we've opened up some courses around there. And as they mentioned before, we've got the Graduate Certificate in Addiction Studies, which you'll have a link later if you want to hear more about that. But we'll move on to some more information about the Graduate Certificate in Nursing, Graduate Diploma and Masters. So I coordinate the Graduate Certificate suite of specializations. We have around 20 specializations, so a really large variety. And within the graduate certificate, we have 4 12.5% units. So there are 4 specialisation units. And these units, we have on average around about 3 that are really specific to your specialisation, and then there'll be another one. Sometimes there's an elective there, and in other times there's another subject that aligns very nicely to those specialisation units. But you can either do those 2 each semester, or you can do 1 each semester. And look, sometimes people come along and they think, yeah, I want to get this done. I'm going to do 2 units. And what we do is we encourage you just to have a look at the units, see how they align with your work commitments and other family commitments. And quite often people before census will withdraw from 1 unit, just do 1 unit and complete it over 2 years because their busy lives don't allow 2 units. Before you do that, please feel free to have a chat to your unit coordinator or tutor or to myself, so we can provide you with some advice about what's the best one to withdraw from, because sometimes, you know, it's best to do, for example, some theory units before the practice units. So you can either enrol in a graduate certificate straight away, or you can enrol in that graduate diploma, and Dinah will talk more to that. But in that, there are 2 core units, one that's around project management, the other very much around evidence-based practice, both of which will be really useful for you as you develop your leadership skills. And then we have a huge amount of elective units and you should be able to find 2 that really light up for you and align with your interests and your future plans. If you are doing well and you've progressed really well within those units and you'd like to continue, the Masters is the next step, and Paula is the course coordinator for that, and she'll talk to that in a minute. But as Paula will tell you, you need a GPA of 5 to progress, and she'll probably say that 3 or 4 times, because you really need to be at a stage within your academic development to be able to do really well in Masters. So the next slide, and Dinah has really touched on this quite clearly in those previous slides. So while we know that online courses are great for people like you who are busy and working and have family, we also know that studying online can be quite isolating. So we've set up regular webinars. Sometimes they're weekly, sometimes people prefer not to attend weekly, but we offer drop-in sessions and webinars so that you can get to know your tutor or unit coordinator, and they can get to know you, and you can ask them those questions. The drop-in sessions are really like, I don't know if you remember days gone by when you were doing a Bachelor of Nursing, and if you had a question, you could pop into someone's office if their door was open. So we've set these up almost like a coffee drop-in. They're sitting here having a coffee. If you've got a question, you can drop in at that time and ask them those questions. So that's a little bit different to the formal webinars. So those webinars can be very interactive, but we're also mindful that you are probably shift workers, you're busy with other commitments. So they're always recorded, so you can watch them at your leisure. And if you're like me, you put it on 1.5 while you're having your coffee and doing your ironing or making the tea, so that you can really absorb that. Again, there are other the Milo sites that we have, the online learning platform, we do have lots of learning content there. There are readings, but you'll find we have really interactive Milo sites. So the idea of having a module where we say read these 5 massive papers, and now we're going to give you an assessment, that's long gone. If we give you a reading, we'll tell you what part of the reading we want you to look at and why you're looking at it and how that's going to improve your practice and prepare you for an assessment. But mostly we have really interactive Milo sites. I had someone from a paediatric specialization, she's an educator, comment the other day that she'd never seen anything so engaging, and so I was very happy with that. And in terms of assessment, as Dinah said before, we're moving very much moving away from these 2,000-word assignments, particularly in my graduate certificate level and Dinah's graduate diploma. Because from our perspective, we're listening to practice and industry as to what they want from their graduates, from a graduate certificate and a graduate diploma, and knowing how to put full stops within a reference and write an assignment isn't really what they're wanting. They're wanting people who can demonstrate their professional development, to present to others, to educate others, and to lead others, and to identify and source the best possible evidence to inform their practice. So that's what we're doing as we develop our units across all of those specializations. And the next slide. So you can see here our specializations. We do have, I think there's 20 now. And in most of these specializations, we need you to be working at least 2 days a week within that specialization. Now, that doesn't include clinical teaching, leadership, gerontology, and quality and safety, because you can be working anywhere within any specialization and be able to apply the learning in practice. And as I said, we're trying to move towards authentic assessment. So in days gone by, you might have been able to write an essay without working in that practice, but now we want that knowledge to be applied in practice. So that's one of the really important points. If you're interested and you're just unsure about which specialisation, I'm the person that is best for you to have a chat with. And we'll have our email contact, I'm sure, at the end of this, so that you can make a time either via email or make a time to meet with me. One thing I was just thinking there is if you're interested in critical care or emergency nursing, in the majority of universities, they usually just have one specialisation, and that's critical care nursing, to encompass everything that is critical care, as in coronary care or emergency. Critical care nursing specialisation requires you to be working in an intensive care unit for 2 days a week. So please don't enrol in that if you're working in emergency, because the critical care nursing specialisations has 3 intensive care subjects, and it has a unit where you're looking at interpreting patient deterioration. So it's really important that you're working in that area. And people who are working in intensive care can't do the emergency nursing specialisation. You must be working in an emergency department. Cardiovascular nursing, if you're working in a coronary care unit, cardiovascular nursing would be the area for you. But we also have high acuity nursing there. And for those of you who are working in an acute care area where you have really, where you have patients who need that increased care, high acuity is for you. If you want to learn what to do as you're waiting for the met call nurse to come, that's what we'd be doing there. There is a note there that we have capped enrolments in 2025 for those areas that are dark green. It's because they're so popular. We've had to cap that enrolment. So if you're interested in doing that in 2025, I'd be thinking of that quite soon. The other thing is the ones with little stars, you have to enrol in semester 1. There's no semester 2 entry. It's essential that you get those foundational units completed in semester 1 before you move on to semester 2. So keep that in mind as well. If you're thinking, oh, I'll start halfway through next year, you may not be able to. And the next slide. That was just one that we wanted to highlight, is child and family health nursing. We're hearing all across Australia there is a huge industry demand for child and family health nurses. It's a really, as you can imagine, be a lovely area to work in, working with families with those little ones. But keep in mind that they also have really nice hours, and nurses are often looking for areas of work that are interesting, but also have got no night shift, I guess. I didn't mind night shift, but I did my time, and I'm now very happy to be working on day shifts, and child and family health is one area. There is clinical practice involved with this unit. It's the only one that we need to have that placement experience with. As I said, only available in semester 1. And if you're interested, please let me know, and I can get the stream lead, Shona McPherson, to contact you, who's wonderful.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Annette. We might take a quick pause there and see if there's any questions about the graduate certificate in nursing. So if anyone out there has some questions about that or the specializations, please pop them into the Q&A. You'll find it in the taskbar. We had Christina ask, what about renal nursing? I don't work in a renal ward, but I want a career in renal nursing. Is it mandatory that I work in a renal ward or dialysis unit to do the grad cert?
Yes, you'll need to. You'll definitely need to be working in a renal ward or a renal unit to undertake that. There was a time many years ago where if you wanted to be an ICU nurse, you would do a critical care course, or if you want to be a renal nurse, you do a renal course. Now, and for our units, you need to be working in that area so you can apply that. Can I progress to study Master of Nurse Practitioner after studying postgrad certificate in neuroscience?
Yeah, I was just looking at that one, John. You mentioned that it's not something that we offer at the University of Tasmania, so we can't sort of say for sure whether or not that's an available option.
Yeah,
I don't know if Annette, Dinah, or Paula have any recommendations on other universities.
Paula can answer that.
At the moment, no, we don't have a progression into a nurse practitioner course. And as you said, there are other universities that do. Moving forward, that might change slightly, but at this point, no, we don't have a nurse practitioner course.
I'd just add to that, Bronwyn, to say, if you are, wanting and there is a course you'd like to do, one of the things you can do is just take a very careful look at what are the requirements to get into that Master of Nurse Practitioner, and then ensure that the study that you are doing with us, or if that's where you choose, actually aligns with those requirements, so that you don't, progress right through a graduate diploma, for example, and then realise that, oh, I should have chosen a different elective, because that would have made my progress into a nurse practitioner master's easier. So that would be my advice at this stage, if you want to do some study with us.
That's great advice. Thank you, Dinah.
And also my understanding from friends who've done nurse practitioner in other universities, they usually you can go in at master level. So it would mean that you could still do your clinical, your certificate and diploma with UTAS and then move on. But as Dinah said, I would look into all of that. Yeah.
We've got another question as well about the specializations. There's somebody who currently works in gastroenterology. I hope I pronounced that correctly. And they're wondering which specialization is best for them.
Yeah, that's a great question. And I would recommend that you give me a call or email, Nithji, because really what we'd be looking at is where, like you're working in gastroenterology, but where do you want to end up? So we do have an acute care pathway. We've got high acuity. If you're thinking you want to go down the pathway of being a CNE, in the clinical nursing and teaching, if you're thinking actually I'd like to be a NUM, then the leadership, there are so many options. So if we can, and I find it really exciting to talk about these, because I'm sort of at this end of my career where I've done all those things. So I love to be able to listen to what you're interested in and try and decide together what would be the most relevant area of study for you.
Great. We've had another question around the requirement to be working 2 shifts a week. So someone's mentioned that they're casual, so sometimes it might be 4 a week and sometimes 1. Is it averaged out over time, or are there firmer guidelines around that?
That would be another thing to have a chat to me about. It wouldn't have to be 2 days 1 week and 1 day the next, but it depends on what the specialisation is as to where you'll be working, because some of these specialisations you need to have a clinical support person within your facility who will help support you with the clinical element of of the program. So that would require you to be working in the same area for a period of time. But if you want to contact me, we can have a talk about what that specialisation is and how we can adapt that, because there's always troubleshooting we can do to make sure that we support you so that you can undertake that study.
Fantastic. I've made a note to connect you both after this webinar. I've had another question from Emily saying that she's been working in recovery and will be transitioning to anaesthetics in March, and her manager wants her to do the perioperative specialisation. She intends to eventually do some scrub scout also. Will she need to be working as a scrub scout during this time of study?
Yeah, this is always a question that comes up, and we have the anaesthetic and recovery specialisation, and we have the peri-op. If you undertake the peri-op, you absolutely need to be working in that scrub scout area. Very, very different knowledge and skills requirements within each of those. So I know it's the same with critical care. Often other universities just offer peri-op, and everyone from anaesthetic recovery, scrub scout, whatever, within that program, we have 4 specialised perioperative units and 3 specialised anaesthetic and recovery units, and the assessments align in those. So it's really important that you're enrolled in the correct one to align with where you're working.
We've also had Nicole say that she's interested in child and family health nursing, which is fantastic, but she's currently on maternity leave and won't be working in that area when she returns to work. Is that going to be an issue?
Nicole, there's lots of things. It's a bigger discussion than a quick answer. And we often have people come back from maternity leave, do theory units 1 year, and then they do their practice units where they can actually be in practice. So if you, again, Bronwyn, if you can...
Yes, I'm making a note of that now.
I can link
connect you
person as well.
After the webinar. I can see as well we've had someone ask if the postgraduate certificates are recognised in different countries. That's something that is probably going to depend country to country. I'm not sure if that's something that we can answer definitively for you on the spot. I can see as well that Paula's got her hand up. So go ahead, Paula.
Thank you. Just following on from Emily's question, anaesthetics and recovery was my specialty if we all went back to our original grassroots. But just also with the perioperative specialty, to mention that those who are working, say, for example, in endoscopy or areas like that, the perioperative course does require you to actually be working in a scrub scout where you can actually, you understand instrumentation, because there's often a bit of confusion about that as well. But where there is confusion and you're not sure, do exactly what you've done now. Reach out and ask, speak to Annette before you enrol, and that's always a great option.
I think we'll just take maybe one more question at this point in time, and then because I don't want to run out of time to run through all the rest of the content that we have to present. But there's an anonymous attendee who's asked if the graduate certificate specializations are suitable for, said NPs, which I'm assuming is nurse practitioners wanting to expand their scope.
I don't know if I can answer that. I guess I'd need to know where the attendee is, what area of nurse practitioner they're working in, and how they wanted to extend their scope. I'd love to have a chat to you about it, though. We love chatting to nurse practitioners.
Right. So when this webinar is done, this is all being recorded. We'll get an email out to you in a couple of days' time, and we'll have lots of information there about how you can connect further and talk through all of your personal circumstances. But we might jump over to Dinah now to talk about the graduate diploma and all of the benefits for continuing your study onto that level.
Thanks, Bronwyn. I think sometimes it's really easy for people to think about why they would be doing a graduate certificate in a specialty, because you want to gain that specialty knowledge and skills. You know, you're working in an area, you really enjoy working in that area, and you really want to build up your knowledge and skills in that specialty. And so that's reasonably clear cut. We do get questions from students saying, well, you know, why would I do a graduate diploma? What does that do for me, or what do I gain by doing that? And I think it really is building on your specialty knowledge, but really consolidating that and bringing in the leadership aspect, and thinking about the fact that you have specialist knowledge, and you've developed that knowledge and skills, and now you're essentially going to be perhaps one of the more experienced people in your unit, and so how are you building up those skills around management, clinical leadership, education, research? These are all the sorts of things that you can gain by doing a graduate diploma. So one of the core units is the Research for Clinical Practice A, and it is a unit that's all about evidence-informed practice, and that's really assisting you to understand what are the resources out there that you can use to understand what's the evidence underpinning the care that we provide, and the feedback we get from students is that they really gain knowledge in that they take back to their practice area, and we love hearing that, because at the graduate certificate, graduate diploma and master's level, that's absolutely what we're aiming for. So you're building up in those areas. It also really gives you a chance to expand your career options. So it may be that you have been working in an area and you're thinking that perhaps you might like to move into an education role or a research role. So you can do elective units or core units at the graduate diploma level that give you effectively a taster for what that is like. You gain qualifications that will benefit you if you're then applying for those positions, but it also gives you a feel for, is this what I thought it was, and is this what I want to be doing? And then importantly, for those who really want to be in that leadership space, it is a key step toward a Master of Clinical Nursing. So you have to have a graduate diploma to be able to then enrol in the Master of Clinical Nursing.
Excellent. Thank you, Dinah. I'll just pause for a moment there and see if there's anyone who has any specific questions about the graduate diploma. It looks at the moment like a lot of the questions are still about specializations. People can keep formulating their questions, though. There might be, someone's just said hi, which is nice. We'll assume there might be a little bit more coming after that. So we might move on to, here we go. Victoria has asked how long the graduate diploma takes.
So the graduate diploma, so you have to have done your 4 graduate certificate units, and then in the graduate diploma, you're doing an additional 4 units. So if you enrol in the graduate diploma from the start, it's 8 units, and it follows the same principle as the graduate certificate. So you can study those units across the year, losing my speech there, as 2 units per semester, or you can take that more of a part-time option and drop down to 1 unit a semester. So it's a minimum of 2 years and a maximum of 5.
And we've had Kaylee say that she has a professional honours with specialisation instead of a graduate diploma, and she's looking to continue to a master's. That might be a good question for Paula to answer. I'll hold on to that one for just a moment. Somebody has asked if 1 unit per semester is okay for a graduate diploma. I can see Michelle is answering that one, and the answer is yes. Do you have a recommendation on how many units people should do, Dinah, or does it really just depend on their personal circumstances?
Yeah, it does. It does depend on their personal circumstances. I think, encouraging people, and I'd pick up what Annette was saying before about sometimes we do find that people enrol into graduate diploma units and then think, oh, wow, this is actually a bit much I thought. And again, I'd be really happy to talk to anyone who was thinking, I would like to withdraw. And I've certainly been emailed by students saying, I'd like to withdraw from one unit. What would you suggest is the best pathway? And look, I'd recommend that you do that, get in contact with either myself or one of our student advisors, because some units are only offered in one semester, and we can kind of look ahead and say, here's what we'd recommend, because it'll give you the easiest path through. And yeah, always really happy to answer those questions. But what works best for you is what you should be studying.
And one thing that's worth mentioning as well, some of you may be familiar with this from your undergraduate days, but you can, if your circumstances change through the year, you can start off doing 1 unit in one semester, you can go up to 2 units in the next semester. You're not locked into a particular study pattern. And around about 3 or 4 weeks into each semester, there's a census date that you'll be notified of, and it's in the academic calendar. And that's your date that you can pull out without any academic or financial penalty. So that's a good one to keep in mind as well, that you need to make that decision early on in the semester. We've got one more question on the graduate diploma, which is that Gillian has completed a graduate certificate of nursing education at another university. How difficult, or is it possible to get that qualification recognised to go into the graduate diploma? That's something you can answer, Janet?
Yeah, it absolutely is. So we call that recognition of prior learning, and so I'd recommend that you go to the university website and look that up. There's a process that you can do. So for some, graduate certificates that are exactly in the same specialty, there's one process that we look at, but certainly if you have studied a graduate certificate elsewhere, you put in as a recognition for prior learning. That comes through to me, in this case, as a credit application. And what I do is look at the units that you've studied and whether they align to the learning outcomes that we have for units within our graduate diploma. And where that alignment happens, we can give you credit. There are some rules about how much credit we can give, but we certainly try to give credit where we can, and many people find that that units that they've done previously, that they can get credit for. It does depend sometimes on how long ago it is since you studied. So that's something else that's looked at. But I would always encourage people to put those forward. And one of the other things to consider from a credit point of view is sometimes programs that you do in your practice setting may also be eligible for a unit of credit with either usually our graduate certificate units. So that's something that you can find out in your own practice setting, but the substantive courses that you do, we do have some arrangements with our practice partners.
And I will include a link to all of our credit information in the follow-up email, but something I'll mention is that you do need to have an application in for a course in order to apply for credit. It's not something that you can have assessed on spec before applying, but unlike other universities, it is free to apply to the University of Tasmania. It's quite a simple and easy process, and completing an application is an obligation-free process. You don't have to then enroll if you're made an offer. So hopefully that's not too big a hurdle for anyone. Okay, we have about 20 minutes left, so I'll move on to Paula to talk about the masters.
Thank you. So the master level subjects at the university are actually double weighted, so they're 25 credit points. So it does mean that you actually study 1 unit at a time. You don't have to choose any particular units. The 2 units are there for you. And that's great too, because then you'll be working and studying with a whole lot of students from a whole diverse array of different specialties across the board. What we have in the master level subjects, in the both subjects, that you do one semester and one in the other. 802 is a prerequisite in first semester for 802, which comes in second semester, but you can study them. They run in both semesters. So you could start middle of the year and do 802, then 803, or whatever happens to suit you time-wise. But in those units, we have 6 different pieces of assessment that are designed to actually help you in your clinical practice. So in the first assessment, you'll know about being, quality and safety and working at the bedside, but you'll be looking at clinical governance that sits over the top of that. What will you do as a charge nurse to know your nurses are doing what they need to do at the bedside? You'll learn about how to make some preparations for a conference. You'll learn how to write an abstract, which is fantastic if you want to do what I do and have travelled the world putting abstracts into conferences all over the place and getting them accepted. And then in your final assessment, you'll learn about actually you'll interview 2 leaders about their leadership styles and how they've got practice change in, and you'll learn yourself perhaps what sort of leader you might think you are or you might want to be. In your second subject, you'll do 3 pieces of work of your own choice of subject. So you'll do a literature review, a practice change proposal using a implementation science model, and then as Bronwyn's talked about with our previous student, Benita, you actually will write a paper for possible publication. It doesn't have to be published, but for possible publication. So all of these things are designed to help you in your clinical practice and to make you better leaders and, leaders of nursing in the future, which is fantastic. And I can tell you, my students that are finishing now, I'm getting truckloads of emails saying, I don't want to stop studying. What can I do now? Where can I go from here? I don't, I feel sad that it's finishing. So they do actually really love it. So it is, whilst in the earlier levels of nursing, in the certificate and the diploma, it's very much about your craft of nursing, which is fantastic. It is also about that at your master level, but it is also a little bit more about your writing, simply because as a leader or when you're a charge nurse, you're going to have to write, say literature reviews to inform a new policy or things like that. So it is a bit more about your writing. So we do ask for a GPA of 5, which is a credit average to come up to master level, because we know that there's sort of a 1 level gap. At other universities where I've worked, it's actually been a distinction, so it's very fair for credit level. So I mention that because the time to worry about that is just to work hard in your diploma and certificate levels, and I'd love to see you up at the master level when the time is right.
Fantastic. Thank you, Paula. We had a question asked a little earlier, which I'm just trying to find now. Somebody may have answered it.
Yes, was it the question about the professional
honours? Yes.
Has someone answered that?
Yeah, I'm just struggling to find it now. Sorry.
Sorry, Bronwyn, I answered it.
That's okay.
Oh, that's right. Oh, well, if you've my comment on that, and please, Annette and Darnett, help me here, but I know a lot of my students after master that want to go on and do a PhD go back and actually look at an honours year, which is an entry. If you get an exceptionally good mark, you can enter into a PhD, but it is an extension of an undergraduate course. So in order to get into the master, I think, and Darnett, you could help me here, you still need to have a diploma, which is a postgraduate qualification to get into the clinical masters. Is that correct? Have I said that correctly?
It actually depends. It's a little confusing because honours is used in different ways. So
Yes.
The Bachelor of Nursing honours, the research honours, that is an extension year on the Bachelor of Nursing undergraduate. The professional honours, though, was a course that we offered that we no longer offer. It does sit at a QF8, so it's at the same level as a graduate diploma. So in our case, it would be sufficient to, if you meet the requirements for masters to progress into a masters, it's viewed at that same level.
And we've had one more question about somebody who has an international postgraduate diploma and they're wondering about possible credit. I think the answer might be that it's very case by case, and we'd have to look at the transcript and the content of the units.
Yeah, recognition of prior learning. So we get domestic applications and we get overseas ones. The overseas ones can be a little bit more complicated to complete, to be honest, because it's not as easy to assess. But certainly, yes, absolutely, you can apply for recognition of prior learning for an overseas qualification.
And I suppose applying for recognition of prior learning is a little bit like applying for a scholarship. There's no cost to do it, so you may as well give it a go if you've got some relevant qualifications. So we've got one more question for the masters, and then we'll move on to talking about the partner scholarships. So we've got someone who has completed a graduate certificate and completed their diploma. They're just waiting for their results. Congratulations. Do you think it's a good decision to continue with masters if they don't know what to do career-wise? So the possible directions they're thinking of is CNE, clinical facilitator, those sorts of things. What kinds of jobs does the masters open up?
In the specialty that you're in, for example, if you have a specialty in education, that's what you've been doing at the lower levels, then obviously your master will say that you have a qualification in education. It depends on what specialty you've actually been in. You will continue on that at the master level. So you would write your individual assignments on the area that you're actually in, your specialty that you have progressed with, if that makes sense. Does this person actually have they finished their certificate and diploma at this point?
They've finished their certificate and they're just awaiting results on their diploma.
Okay, so that specialisation, and jump in here, Annette, and done it at any stage, that specialisation is what you would come into master with. So that would be, say, for example, if it was perioperative, you would have a, clinical nursing in perioperative nursing. If you wanted to change direction now and do another specialty, then my understanding is, and Donnet and Annette, help me out here, if you wanted to, say, for example, you've been working in intensive care nursing, and now you think you might want to be an educator, then you might need to go back and do a few more education subjects. What are your thoughts on that, Donnet, please?
Yes, so I guess, there are different specialties, and so there are core units for those specialties, but that's where the elective choices can be really valuable, because particularly at the graduate diploma level, you can choose to do a leadership unit as an elective. You can choose to do a learning and teaching unit as an elective, and so you can gain some of that experience, but it isn't the full qualification. So you might be doing a graduate diploma in cardiovascular nursing, but as part of that, you are studying a subject that will assist you if you then are looking at being a CNE and want to be, applying that high-level educational knowledge. It's not a full specialty, but it does give you some skills and knowledge.
So in answering the question about you've already finished your grad diploma, so I suppose that ship sailed a little for you in that you've already made all of those decisions. You would come into master level with that specialty that you've been doing. But what does it offer for you? It offers you the things that I've talked about, learning about advancing your nursing writing, advancing your understanding of evidence, advancing your understanding of clinical governance, conferencing, leadership styles, how to do literature reviews, how to do a practice change proposal. Everyone wants to change something, and this will step you through an implementation science model, which is designed for healthcare. All the other models are actually designed for leadership or for management. This is designed for making change in a healthcare environment. And then the ability to write a paper for possible publication and understanding how to do that. That's how we make change in nursing. That's, people reference it. That's where evidence-based practice really comes into the fore, and that the students really do love it.
Okay, fantastic. We only have a few minutes left, so we better move on to the Health Partner Scholarships because I know there's a lot of questions about those, but I can see that people are still asking questions in the chat and everyone's kind of madly typing away behind the scenes. So as you've heard us mention quite a few times, we have a really extensive range of Health Partner Scholarships. So if you work for an eligible healthcare provider, we offer scholarships that range in value that reduce the overall cost of study. We have an A to Z listing on our website, which we'll provide a link to afterwards. And you will have noticed when you registered for this webinar, we also asked you where you worked. And I'll follow up over email after this to give you a link directly to the relevant partner scholarship for your workplace. Something very important to note is that you will need to be eligible for a Commonwealth supported place. So if you are an international student, these will not be available to you, unfortunately. And the way that you access it is when you get to the point of enrolling in your course, you'll complete a health partner employee declaration, just confirming that you do work for your employer. So on to the cost. These are the Commonwealth supported place prices for the nursing program. So each 50 credit point stage, so the graduate certificate portion, the graduate diploma portion, and the master's portion, except for the quality and safety specialization, is $2,312. So if you start at the very beginning and go all the way through to masters, the total Commonwealth supported fee would be $6,938. The quality and safety specialization, that's really difficult to say, sorry. Their fees are $4,656 per 50 credit points. So the total graduate certificate to master's journey for that one would be $13,968. We've had some questions I've seen come through that Eli's answered for us around the application process. As I mentioned before, applying online is easy and it's free. You can reach out and our team will help you with any questions you have along the way. You just need to jump onto our online application portal. It's a step-by-step process that you go through, filling out your previous work and study experience. One of the other things that you'll need to do is upload evidence of your APRA registration, which I've got a screenshot on the next slide. The process after that is that our admissions team behind the scenes will process all of that information and they'll get back to you. We don't have a depending on the volume of applications at different times of the years, like everything else that's going on, we don't have a fix, like it takes exactly 5 days for this to happen. Usually within 2 weeks, you would receive your offer. And it will depend if there's any information that's missing along the way or needs clarifying, someone from the admissions team will get back in touch with you. And after you receive your offer, you'll log back into the application portal and accept. And around about 24 hours after doing that, the systems catch up behind the scenes and you'll be able to enroll in your units. And we have various workshops through Orientation Week to help you out with that whole process of enrolling. And that's where you might meet lovely people like Eli and Tom that will help you out with that process and answer your questions along the way. A quick note on the application process specific to all of you is that when you get to this qualification stage, you can see here, this is what our application portal looks like. You've just got these individual tabs to go through. Under this professional awards, this is where you'll put your APRA info. So you'll need the name of the qualification, who awarded it, the year it was awarded, and your registration number if known. Our admissions team can also look people up in a database. And so it is very helpful if you received your APRA registration, maybe if you are married and changed your name, if it's under a different name, please put your maiden name if you have one under the personal details page. But that's essentially it. You just, in the course preferences tab, you every specialization is listed as a different course. So the easiest way to search, instead of putting in nursing, is to put perioperative, and then the perioperative specialization will come up, or renal, or whatever else. It's my only other big application tip. In terms of timelines, we do accept applications all the way up until the 21st of February next year. I would advise you to apply as soon as possible though, just to get things out of the way, then you can get organised. As we saw earlier in the presentation, some specializations do have a cap on numbers, and that's just a first come, first serve basis on how those are awarded. So no reason not to just go ahead and apply now. Semester 1 will commence on the 24th of February. The census date that I mentioned a little earlier, which is your date to withdraw without academic penalty or financial penalty, is the 22nd of March. So you can try out 2 units at a time for a few weeks and see how it goes. And then for semester 2, we'll accept applications up until the 18th of July, and semester 2 will commence on the 21st. And then on the 19th of August is the census date. So we might jump now. I think that a lot of the questions have been answered. We're actually doing really well for timing. Paula, go ahead.
Hello, may I just say, just on the point that you were making, a very good point, may I say, about enrolling early, but also we really want you to set yourself up for success, not for failure. And one of the hardest, it does, if you can apply up until those later dates, but then it takes a while to get in. And I don't know about you, but it's like, sometimes if you arrive late for work, your whole day feels like you're working backwards. It can work like that with study. So I would really encourage you to apply early. You do have the ability to defer, but coming in late sometimes can make students feel like they've missed the bus a little bit and they're always running behind. So, to set yourself up for success, get in early.
Yes, that's excellent advice. So I might just give people another moment to ask any questions they have. I can see that Michelle is answering a question that is live at the moment. As I've mentioned a couple times, and you will have heard when you joined the webinar, this is being recorded. So I will send a copy of that out along with a bunch of additional information about how you can further connect to discuss your study options. But yeah, thank you all so much for joining us today to talk about postgraduate nursing. And thank you so much to Annette, Dinah, and Paula for presenting, and to Michelle and Eli and Tom for working tirelessly behind the scenes, answering questions. I hope that we see you all as students at the University of Tasmania next year, but otherwise, enjoy your day and see you later.